Acharya Shota Shata Shishimad, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki, Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Hare Krishna. Om Vishnu Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Srimad Bhakti Swami Nityanamane. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Today, reading from Canto 2, Chapter 4, Text 14. Chapter titled The Process of Creation. Okay. So, Namo, Namas, Te, Astu, Vrishabhaya, Sattvatam, Vidura, Kashtaya, Muhu, Kuyoginam, Nirasta, Sham Yatishaina, Radasha, Swa, Damani, Ramani, Ramjyate, Namaha, Namo Namaste Stva, Namo Namaste Stva Rishabhaya Sattvatam, Vidura Kashtaya Muhu Kuyoginam, Nirasta Samyati Shayena Radasa, Swadhamani Brahmani Ramshyate Namaha. Namo Namaste Namo Namaste Stvarishpaya Sattvatam, Vidura Kashtaya Muhu Kuyoginam, Nirasta Samyati Shayena Radasa, Swadhamani Brahmani Ramshyate Namaha. Namo Namaste Swavrabhaya Sattvatam, Vidura Kashtaya Mahu Kuyoginam, Nirasta Samyati Shayena Radhasa, Swadhamani Brahmani Ramshyate Namaha. Namo Namaste Thakrishpaya Napatam,
Nirasta Samya Tishayena Radhasa, Swadhamani Brahmani Ramsaye Namaha, Namo Namaste Rishabhaya Sattvatam, Vidura Kashtaya Muhu Kuyoginam, Nirasta Samya Tishayena Radhasa, Swadhamani Brahmani Ramsyate Namaha. Namo Namaste Surishabhaya Sattvatam. Namo Namaste Surishabhaya Sattvatam. Vidura Kashtaya Muhuku Yoginam. Vidura Kashtaya Muhuku Yoginam. Nirasta Samjati Shayena Radhasa. Nirasta Samjati Shayena Radhasa. Swadhamani Brahmani Ramsyate Namaha. Swadhamani Brahmani Ramsyate Namaha.
Balaji's?
Namo Namaste Shubhaya Sattvatam. Vidura Kashaya Muhukuyoginam. Nirasta Samyati Shayena Radhasa. Swadhamani Brahmani Ramsyate Namaha.
Namo Namaste Srivaya Sattvatam Dura Kashtaya Mahuku Yoginam
Nirasta Samyati Shayena Radhasa.
Swadhamani Brahmani Ramsyate Namaha. Okay, word for word. Nama Namate. Let me offer my obeisances unto you. Let's do or Rishabhaya unto the great associate. Sattvatam of the members of the Yadu Dynasty. Vidura Kashtaya, one who is far from mundane wranglers. Muhu, always. Ku Yoginam, of the non-devotees. Nirasta, vanquished. Shamya, equal status. Atishayana, by greatness. Radhasa, by opulence. Swadhamani, his own abode. Brahmani, in the spiritual sky. Ramsyate, enjoys. Namaha, I do bow down. Okay, translation and purport by His Divine Grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Okay. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto him who is the associate of the members of the Yadu Dynasty and who is always a problem for the non-devotees. He is the supreme enjoyer of both the material and spiritual worlds. Yet he enjoys his own abode in the spiritual sky. There is no one equal to him because his transcendental opulence is immeasurable. Purport. There are two sides of the transcendental manifestations of the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna. For the pure devotees, he is the constant companion, as in the case of his becoming one of the family members of the Yadu Dynasty, or his becoming the friend of Arjuna, or his becoming the associate neighbor of the inhabitants of Vrindavan, as the son of Nanda Yashoda, the friend of Sudhama, Sridhama, and Madhu Mangala, or the lover of the damsels of Rajabhumi, etc. These are aspects of his personal feature. And by his impersonal feature, he expands the rays of the Brahmajyoti, which is limitless and all-pervasive. Part of this all-pervasive Brahmajyoti, which is compared to the sun rays, is covered by the darkness of the Mahat Tattva. And this insignificant part is known as the material world. In this material world, there are innumerable universes, like the one we can experience, And in each of them, there are hundreds and thousands of planets, like the one we are inhabiting. The mundaners are more or less captivated by the unlimited expansion of the rays of the Lord, but the devotees are concerned more with his personal form. from which everything is emanating. Janmad Yashyataha. As the sun rays are concentrated in the sun disk, the Brahmajyoti is concentrated in Goloka Vrindavan, the topmost spiritual planet in the spiritual sky. The immeasurable spiritual sky is full of spiritual planets named Vaikunthas, far beyond the material sky. The mundaners have insufficient information of even the mundane sky, so what can they think of the spiritual sky? Therefore, the mundaners are always far, far away from him. With their tiny rockets, they are having difficulty reaching even the nearest planet, the moon. Therefore, what can they conceive of the spiritual sky and the planets there? Even if in the future they are able to manufacture some machine whose speed may be accelerated to the velocity of the wind or mine, the mundaners will still be unable to imagine reaching the planets in the spiritual sky. So the Lord in his residential abode will always remain a myth or a mysterious problem for them. But for the devotees, the Lord will always be available as an associate. In the spiritual sky, the Lord's opulence is immeasurable. He resides in all spiritual planets, the innumerable Vaikuntha planets, by expanding his planetary portions along with his liberated devotee associates. But the impersonalists who want to merge into the existence of the Lord are allowed to merge as one of the spiritual sparks of the Brahmajyoti. They have no qualification for becoming associates of the Lord, either in the Vaikuntha planets or in the supreme planet, Goloka Vrindavan, described in the Bhagavad Gita as Madhama. And here in this verse is Swadham of the Lord. The Madhama or the Swadhama is described in the Bhagavad Gita as follows: Tadbhashe te shuryo na shashanko na pavakaha yat gatva nanivartante tadhama paramam mama. The Lord Swadham does not require any sunlight or moonlight or electricity for illumination. That dham or place is supreme, and whoever goes there never comes back to this material world. The Vaikuntha planets and the Goloka Vrindavan planet are all self-illuminating, and the rays scattered by those Swadhams of the Lord constitute the existence of the Brahmajyoti. The self-illumination of the Swadham, of the Lord Swadham, is further confirmed in the Vedas. In the following verse found from the Mundaka Upanishad, 2-10, Kata Upanishad, 2-15, and the Shvetashvatara Upanishad, 6-14. Natachuryo Bhati Nachandratarakam Nime Vidyoti Bhanti Kutoyam Agnihi Tameva Bantam Anubhati Sarvam Tasya Bhasha Sarvam Idam Vibhati. In the Swadham of the Lord, there is no need of sun, moon, or stars for illumination, nor is there need of electricity, so what to speak of ignited lamps? On the other hand, it is because those planets are self-illuminating that all effulgence has become possible. And whatever there is that is dazzling is due to the reflection of that Swadham. One who is dazzled by the effulgence of the impersonal Brahmajyoti cannot know the personal transcendence. Therefore, in the Ishopanishad, text 15, it is prayed that the Lord remove his dazzling effulgence so that the devotee can see his real reality. It is thus spoken: Hiranmayena patrena satyasya pihitam mukham tatvam pusham apavrinu satyadharmaya drishtaye. O Lord, you are the maintainer of everything, both material and spiritual, and everything flourishes by your mercy. Your devotional service, or bhakti yoga, is the actual principle of religion. Satyadharma. And I am engaged in that service. So kindly protect me by showing your real face. Please therefore remove the veil of your Brahmajyoti rays so that I can see your form of eternal bliss and knowledge. Okay. Om Agana Tamanandasya Gananjanjana Salakaya Chakshurun Ritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapanantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuktapana Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Shah Shri Rupam Sagujatam Sagana Raganavtam Idam Tam Sajivam Savadvaitam Savadutam Prijana Saritam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Laritam Shri Vishakamitam Cha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimante Bhakti Vikas Swaminiti Namane Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimante Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nivisheshu Sunivari Pachkatara Satarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, one second. Okay. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto him who is the associate of the members of the Yadu Dynasty and who is always a problem for the non-devotees. He is the supreme enjoyer of both the material and spiritual worlds, yet he enjoys his own abode in the spiritual sky. There is no one equal to him because his transcendental opulence is immeasurable. All righty. So, in this particular text, in the actual translation, it's very evident the personal feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is his topmost feature, but we read in the purport that Srila Prabhupada very much so highlights the point about the two. He opens it by saying that there's two sides of the transcendental manifestations of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. So he explains that there's the personal feature, which is the topmost, and then there's the impersonal feature, which is described as the Brahmajyoti, the rays of the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this impersonal feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this Brahmajyoti. So this is accepted as part of the absolute truth. This is truth of itself, and generally in society, people come to this conclusion. I mean, relatively easily, because it is in one dimension. It is spiritual, because it's connected to Krishna. And it seems like it's the topmost. But generally there's, there's misconceptions about that. So people, they try to understand, and there's generally philosophy was trying to understand, I believe so anyways. There's different philosophers. But anyways, without getting on. So then generally the philosophy is trying to understand the world that we live in and making sense of it and what's life all about. Generally philosophy will try to answer those kind of questions. So people that were interested in that and philosophers, they would try to understand that, what is life, what is the supreme, things like that. And so generally, not generally, but unless you get the association of a pure devotee, it's very difficult. Very, very difficult. It's practically impossible to come to the understanding of the personal feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because just for instance, unless theoretically, we may know of somebody that I may know somebody and you may not know that individual. So then you can imagine what that person may be like, what that person likes or whatever, or whoever that individual is. But you'll never be able to know that person unless that individual comes before you and reveals himself to you, or unless I tell you of that person. You could speculate for so long. Well, maybe, maybe it's a boy, maybe it's a girl, maybe he's older, maybe he's younger, maybe probably has hair, maybe he doesn't have hair. Da 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 da. So the philosophers and Gyanis and speculators, sometimes they try to understand the absolute truth, and so they try to go about it in different ways. One process is this neti neti, which means not this, not this. So they come to the conclusion that the absolute truth is that it's nothing material, which is correct, but being contaminated by what they see in the world and their own misconceptions, they conclude that, well, the absolute truth, not being anything material, must be a non-material substance, which is formless, because everything I see in this world has form. So then they come to the conclusion and understanding, well, that absolute truth is something which, anyways, you can't say what it is because it's beyond words. But they come to the conclusion that it's just energy or just light. And if one is following the Vedas and is not properly being guided, he may come to the conclusion that the absolute truth is the Brahma Jyoti, or the impersonal feature of the Lord. And Srila Prabhupada, I think he cites, I don't know if he cites it in this purport specifically. Let me see. Oh, it's in another thing. But but it's stated there. Krishnadas Kaviraj makes the point. What is this? Yada Dvaitam Brahmapadashari Terapyash Tanuba. So what the Upanishads speak of as this Advaitam, this non-dual substance, Brahmapadashari. So the Brahman, the non-dual, that's just the bodily feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's specifically speaking in this verse of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So the Upanishads and the Vedas, they explain that the bodily effulgence of the Lord is Brahman. But anyways, due to lack of proper understanding of the association devotees, one comes to a different conclusion. So, and it can seem easier to believe because what's the supreme, what's the highest truth, what is God? God is, he can't be a person because we see in this world that people have problems and idiosyncrasies, and especially in Kali Yuga, everybody more or less is crazy. And there's so much bad in the world, and people are evil and crooked. So how can God be a person? So then it seems easy to, it must be some universal energy or some force or some mystical power or some light or some love or some feeling in the heart or whatever. That makes perfect sense. So it seems like that. And it makes sense to some people. And some people are attracted to that conception. It's understood that the Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is all attractive. And Krishna explains, so some individuals they may, like was being explained by Vishwachitra Prabhu yesterday, they're not necessarily envious of Krishna, but just due to whatever, they don't have proper association or whatever, they're not so interested in the personal feature of the Lord. So then they settle for Brahman, the Brahma Jyoti. That is generally not the case in this day and age. People, they generally settle for this impersonal conclusion because they also have proper understanding. We see on the streets people say, well, everything is God and God is everything and I am God, you're a God, we all are God. But that's not the proper conclusion of the Vedas. There's generally this impersonalistic tendency and the heart of an individual is due to a envious nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and an unwillingness to surrender. Because then if you say, well, everything is God and I am God and, it's all just energy and this and that, then there's no parameters by which to live in this world actually, because it's all just, everything is just God. So you do what you do, I do what I do, and we all live happy and everything's okay. But anyways, I don't forget. I'm okay, you're okay. And anyways, famous people, why can't we all just get along? So the thing is that not everybody say, well, whatever you believe, that's okay, and whatever I believe, that's okay. But then when we say, well, my philosophy is that, I want you dead. And so it's not okay. Well, because you're living, so I want you dead. So then how do we what's the word I'm looking for? How do we settle that, or how do we yeah, what's the baseline for that? So there is no, so that's the problem with that philosophy of just whatever you think or whatever you feel, that it's okay. There's not really much room for compromise for that. If somebody wants to kill you, then like that. So the Shastras give rules and understanding of the material world, and that there is an absolute truth, and there's a way to understand that supreme truth, and there's a way to go about it. So the Vedas actually describe the proper understanding of the impersonal feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that's mentioned in a couple texts throughout the Vedas. The Bhagavad Gita, I'll just read a couple things from there. I should have just grabbed the Gita, but give me a minute to pull it up somehow. So the Bhagavad Gita in chapter 12, so Arjuna inquires in the very beginning about, something weird's going on here. Okay, so Arjuna inquires in the very beginning of that chapter about what's higher, that you have the impersonal form, you have the personal form. So what's the best? Like what's the most, what's more perfect? Because we understand previously in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, anybody know what happened in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita? Yeah, universal form. So Arjuna is asking, one of the links is, so Krishna displayed in the 11th chapter the universal form of the Lord. What else did Krishna do in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita? Some Gita quizzes. Yeah. So and the two-handed form. So Krishna in that chapter he shows his universal form, which everybody, the universities, they really like that chapter, and so so he shows this universal form, and then that whole description is given in the 11th chapter. And then the end of it, he shows his personal form. The form, is Narayan, and then the form of Krishna. So Arjuna, just to kind of clarify what's going on in that chapter, he asked him this question in the beginning. So that what's more perfect, worshiping your impersonal or worshiping your personal form? So then the third verse, skipping over the second verse, Krishna explains, but those who fully worship the unmanifested, that which lies beyond the perception of the senses, the all-pervading, inconceivable, unchanging, fixed and immovable, the impersonal conception of the absolute truth, by controlling the various senses and being equally disposed to everyone, such persons engaged in the welfare of all at last achieve me. For those whose minds are attached to the unmanifest and personal feature of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. To make progress in that discipline is always difficult for those who are embodied. So the process of worshiping the impersonal aspect of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is troublesome. It's not very easy, actually, as Krishna is giving his opinion in the Bhagavad Gita. And there's different reasons for that. One reason is that the mind is naturally attracted to focusing on form or focusing on sound, just like, whatever. If it's quiet in the room and then you're meditating on Om or something, and then there's like a loud clap, then what was that? And then the mind thinks, well, was it a clap, or was it thunder, or was it this, was it that, or it happened over there, and, this person's over there, so maybe it was that person that did that, or maybe somebody fell, or like, what was that, or maybe something fell back there, or what did it, so the mind naturally thinks it's moving, oscillating. That's the nature of the mind, to think, to whatever, to be active. And then the intelligence comes in. Well, it couldn't have been glass because glass would have shattered and this and that, and it couldn't have been metal because it would have been a ping. So then this is the nature of the mind, the intelligence, all these things, and then the senses. So, but the impersonal path is trying to kind of get rid of all that, to end because the sense objects are attracted to the sense, so the mind is contaminated, so the mind has to be purified, and the senses are attracted to sense objects. So because on the impersonal path, there's no conception of engaging the senses, and the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hrishikesha, Hrishikena, Sevanam Bhakti Uchate. So there's no conception of this, of engaging the senses in Hrishikesh. So therefore, the conclusion is that we have to stop engaging the senses. So we have to stop seeing. We have to stop smelling. We have to stop tasting. So my body, just like we get nice prasadam, I've heard. So like we go down the line and we have, some nice rice or some fancy dal or some raita or something, and then some paneer sabji and some other nice sabji and salad dressing, puri, pakora, chutney, and then we have, some sweet rice, some halava, and then some nectar drink. So what my bodies do is they come with their big tiffin, and you put in, so they take rice, and they take the dal, and then they take the sabji, and they take the other sabji. That sounds pretty good. And then they take the salad, put that on top. Okay, maybe you don't want to do that. And they put the salad dressing on top. And then you just go and take everything. Put everything on top, and then get to the sweet rice. Put the sweet rice on top, that. Put the halava on top. Okay, pour the drink in there. Okay, mix all that up, and then they eat that. Because the idea is that you're not trying to enjoy, like why, all this variety of food stuff. What is, the tongue is so voracious. Why are we trying to, that's sense gratification. Best to eat, just like I remember when I used to live in Gainesville. So one lady would come to the Krishna lunch, some Buddhist lady. She would describe, she lived in a Buddhist temple for like, I don't know how many years. Anyways, whatever. But they would eat the same thing every single day. Some soup, and it was unspiced, no salt, no nothing. Nectar, huh? We could do that nowadays. We just make some khichdi, just like the gopis did. We can follow in the footsteps of the gopis. Eat some unspiced khichdi every single day, not just for this period of Chaturmas. So there's boil some green mung dal, some rice, and then it's very easy because you don't have to do anything. You just boil it, and you can chant your japa and focus on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and then you can eat that. But nobody will do that because it's not very palatable. But the thing is that also too, even though they take these things that are unspiced and they mix it all up, the thing is that there's always some sense gratification there. Even the yogis, they take their spoonful of rice. There's always that subtle sense gratification there. Or they stop their breathing and they breathe a little bit. There's always that pleasure of the senses. That's one is on the fully liberated platform. So this is the path of an impersonalist. And so this path is obviously not for everybody. And I wouldn't recommend it for anybody. If somebody came to the temple, I wouldn't advise them to worship the impersonal feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and to minimize, maybe we would tell them to minimize their sense gratification and to, in that way. So we agree with the personal, so what would we say? The Dvaitavads and the Dvaitavads. So this Dvaitavads are those that they focus on the impersonal aspects of the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the lens of the Vedas. So we agree with them up until the point of liberation, because we do have to control the senses, and we shouldn't just be plainly hedonistic, and we should follow Dharma. We should do what it says in the Shastra, and we should worship the Supreme Personality of God. They'll agree on those things, but then the point of liberation, they'll say, whatever. Like Prabhupada's bringing out the point here in his purport. What does he say exactly? But he makes the point that they're satisfied with the Brahmajyoti. So, and they have no knowledge, and they have, like here he says here. So, what is it exactly? The impersonalists who want to merge into the existence of the Lord are allowed to merge as one of the spiritual sparks of the Brahmajyoti. They have no qualifications for becoming associates of the Lord, either in the Vaikuntha planets or in the supreme planet Goloka and Vrindavan. So this is the nature of the impersonalist. So also I'll read a verse from the Brahma Samhita. So what is this? The Sanskrit, I believe, is Yasyayato. Anyways, slipping my mind. Yasyayato. No, that's not it. Yasya Prabhavato Jagat Annakoti Kotweshu Seshu Asudhari Vibhuti Bindam Tad Brahma Nishkalam Ananta Ashesha Bhutam Govindamari Purusham Tamahambata Ashesha Bhutam. Not Ashesha Rupam. There's a different understanding completely. So the translation is, I worship the primeval Lord, whose effulgence is the source of the non-differentiated Brahman, mentioned in the Upanishads, being differentiated from the infinity of glories of the mundane universe, appears as the indivisible, infinite, limitless truth. So these are some of the qualities of the impersonal aspects of the Lord. Indivisible. It's anyways, I don't know. I don't have experience of the Brahman. Anybody here have everybody a Brahman realized soul? So Prabhupada, the way he describes it actually is not, he doesn't, and if you read Prabhupada's books, it's, and I mean, that's the truth. It doesn't describe, you don't read somewhere in the, you don't get the feeling from reading Srila Prabhupada purports that the Brahman is something like to inquire into or like to experience. You don't really get that feeling. Like you read somewhere and it's like, well, that sounds like really nice, like to merge. He describes it as spiritual suicide, stuffing out one's existence. He gives the example that just like a child is born from the mother, so the child is nice and like that. You raise a child, crying, whining, all those fun things. Anyways, for some people, so the child is born. And it's, so much work, so much labor raising the child. And then the child grows up and he comes to his mother. And what does he tell his mother? That, mother, like, you've given birth to me. Give me this, you give me life. So you please help me commit suicide and kill myself. So Prabhupada, he's given analogies like this to describe Brahman realization. That is like Brahman realization, that the child is born, he's grown, and then he asks his mother, please help me commit suicide. So this is the nature of the Brahman. So Srila Prabhupada, time and time again, he doesn't glorify that as something to be achieved, actually, or something relishable, or something enjoyable. We have to understand that that's one aspect of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and there is some, we have to understand it in connection to Krishna, because it is amazing because that Brahman effulgence, that's actually what we see the sun, the rays of the sun is also getting its power from my understanding, is from the Brahman effulgence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that it's that Brahman, which the Brahma Jyoti, which is lighting up the material worlds. And also too, we read that it's that, like we were understanding here, Prabhupada brings out the point that in the spiritual world, we'll get to that in a bit, but the Swadam does not require any sunlight or moonlight or electricity for illumination. So we think that the Brahmachoti is great in that aspect, that it's lighting up the material universe and all these things. We understand it in that perspective, not as something that we want to enter into, because it is actually it is a part of the absolute truth. Like the verse was quoted yesterday. Vedanti tattva vigat anyways, forgetting. Brahmeti paramam eti bhagavaniti sabhyate. So that there's three features of the absolute truth. There's Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, quoting that verse from earlier, Krishnadas Kaviraj, I believe, anyways, I don't know if he actually wrote that verse or not, but he cites that verse in the Mangalarcharam, that this Yadu Dynasty Brahma Padashari Tarap Yashtanubha Yat Atman Tayami Purusha Iti Shosham Saviva Baha Saraswayai Porno Yahi Bhagavan Saswayamayam Nachitanyat Krishnaj Jagati Paratatvam Paramiha. He's explaining the three features of the absolute truth. There's Brahman, which is spoken in the Upanishads. That's just his effulgence, his bodily effulgence. So we think, what the Brahman is, the Upanishads are describing this, these Gyanis are so into it. But Brahman, we have to achieve that, they're doing these severe austerities to achieve that Brahman, to get in that position. So that's for them, this talk of Brahman, all this thing, they're attracted to that. So you're trying to achieve this thing that's so great, so amazing. That's just his bodily effulgence. It's not so amazing, and then we're reading here in the prayers, actually, this Hiranmayena Patrina. So that you think that's so amazing, but just, move that aside just a little bit, because there's something greater than that. So that's there. And so for those people, these beautiful descriptions, that's for them. This is Prakashananda Saraswati. Lord Chaitanya, was showing his effulgence to him. And they were attracted by that. Who is this amazing personality? Lord Chaitanya was also sitting in the dirty place where the shoes and where the feet are washed and things. So that's for them. But there's more than that. So then it's being explained further. This Paramatma feature, that's it's localized, it's everywhere, it's in between the atoms, that's amazing. We're not in between the atoms, we're not everywhere, it knows everything, situated in everyone's heart. Sarvasya tamham hridisani visto matash mitir gyanam apohanam cha. So that's explained that in the heart, so as a super soul, the Paramatma feature, Krishna's, he's giving intelligence, remembrance, forgetfulness. That's pretty amazing. that's just an expansion. It's really not. It's like it's amsa. I mean, even that is the amsa of an amsa, because then Krishnadas Kaviraj explains later that even this Sharkarshana Karna Toya Chai, Garboda Chai, Chapayod Badi Chai, Sheshasha Sheshamsa Kalashanicha, Nandaki Ramasparnam Mastu, that of Lord Nityananda, that yeah, Lord Nityananda, he's great and amazing, but this Shankarshan, that's an expansion of him. And then, these are, so it's great and amazing. So then even, that we're describing how great Shankarshan is, Pradumna, Adiruddha, but then this Paramatma is also amazing, but it's just an expansion. Really not, yeah, okay. But then Chaitanya, so Bhagavan, full of all opulence, 6 opulence, Saraswaya, Samargasya, Viryasya, Sasasriya, Gyanavayoga, Yushtayo, Samnat Itin Bhagan. Anyways, I'm mixing up all that Sanskrit. So the point, so the Supreme Absolute Truth, Bhagavan, is full of all 6 opulences. Now we're getting somewhere. So this knowledge, this opulence, I'm going to mess it all up. So he's all famous, he's all knowledgeable, all strength, all renunciation, all beauty, and all, I'm missing one more. Renown, I think I got that one. Fame, I got that. Beauty, fame, knowledge, power, opulence. Anyway, I guess, yeah, opulence, money. He's got all the money. I got it. All the money in the world Bhagavan has. So now we're getting somewhere. So then Krishnadas Kaviraj explains. So this is where we're trying to get to. So we explain. So Bhagavan is there. What is this? Saraswaya Purnonyaya Bhagavan Swayamaya. So he's complete with all the 6 opulence. So that is Krishna. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is none other than Krishna. So that's who we're worshiping. That is who Chaitanya Charitamrita is talking about. So the impersonalists, they don't get to that point. And they don't have that proper understanding. So that's the point being mentioned. So Arjuna is asking that. So what's better? What's easier? Is it the personal or is it impersonal? And so Krishna explains in the 2nd verse that those who always fix their minds on my personal form and are always engaged in worshiping me with great and transcendental faith are considered by me to be most perfect. And he explains how that's easy, that that you focus your mind upon him, being devoted without deviation, engaging in devotional service, meditating upon Krishna, being fixed in the mind. Because they're meditating upon Krishna, and then whatever. Then you hear some glass break or something, and then you think, oh my God, the glass broke. That must have been one of whatever, some container that had some bogan in it, one offered to Krishna or something like that. Instead of thinking, it's connected to Krishna. So the mind is always absorbed in Krishna. But the impersonalists, due to a lack of knowledge, they're cut off from that actually. They're actually very unfortunate. So this verse is highlighting that and bringing that point out. At least not the purport. Srila Prabhupada is bringing us to that point, because the actual text in and of itself, because the Sukadeva Goswami is about to describe the process of creation. And so there's different energies come involved in that. And then it can seem impersonal. It seems like, he clearly states, of course, that it's, Brahma engages in tapasya, and then through that realization, he gets the power to create by Vishnu. But then there's just some description of the universal form of the Lord and how this part is like this and like that. And so Brahma, or what's it called? I think in the next chapter, there'll be some talks with Narada Muni to Brahma. And so he's saying, Brahma, somehow, I thought you were supreme. Is there someone above you? And then so Brahma explains like that there is someone above me. So it can just to make the point and to highlight it, that the supreme absolute truth is a person. So that's being established in this verse and in this purport. And so Srila Prabhupada goes on to explain. So we mentioned previously this yasya prabha prabhavato jagat annakoti ko tveshu seshu vasudari vibhuti bindam ted brahma nishkalam anantam ashesha bhutam. So this bodily effulgence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. So Govinda, the original person. So we are worshiping him. This is the point. So this particular verse is highlighting that the Supreme Absolute Truth is a person. So reading the translation, so Sukadeva Goswami is expressing that. So offering as a basis unto him who is the associate of the members of the Yadu Dynasty and is always a problem for the non-devotees. So explaining and expressing the personal feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is an associate of the members of the Yadu Dynasty. And so when we mention the Yadu Dynasty. There's so many things that can be thought of, actually. Like, we think of the Yadu Dynasty. That was a big problem for Kamsa, actually. Because he was under the understanding that the demigods would take birth in different dynasties, and and then also this eighth child, the child of Devaki that will kill him, and all this, and then Krishna also. There's different names of Krishna. There's Yadunath, Lord of the Yadus, and also Dwarkadish, Lord of Dwarka. In this way, Krishna established Dwarka to as a pastime, but to engage in his Leelas also, because when he was in Mathura, all these kings and things were disturbing him. Jarasandha came so many different times to fight with Krishna, that's mentioned in the 10th canto. And so also too, so much can be said about that. There's the 10th canto, which is, it's an... We say it's 90 chapters. It's the most chapters of any chapter in the Srimad Bhagavatam. But Maharaj Parikshit only had 7 days and 7 nights, and so how can you describe the Krishna in 7 days and 7 nights? He had to speak other things also, but Krishna's glories are limitless. There's no end to it. I believe in the end of the what's this? I'd have to look, but I believe there's some verse mentioned in the end of the 90th chapter of the 10th canto. Sukadeva Goswami, I think, expresses that there's no end to it. I've just simply tried to explain just a little bit of Krishna's pastimes because they're endless. There's no end to it. So, anyways, forgot what was. So then how can we speak completely about Krishna being a member of the Yadu Dynasty and what he did and how he behaved and all the things? How do we come to an end of that? We don't come to an end of it. And there's Bhagavatam has an end, right? It ends at the 12th canto. So when you read the 12th canto, all 12 cantos of Bhagavatam, you finished it. You finished it. That's if you have an improper understanding, you'll think you finished it. That I've read all of Prabhupada's books, so therefore I've completed. I've got it to my, I don't know, the highest Bhakti Shastri degree. My Bhakti. What is the top one? Sarvabhauma, is that it? I don't know. Anyways, I don't know either. But I've got my topmost level Bhakti Shastri degree. Therefore, I've completely understood Krishna. I don't need to read the books anymore because I've understood. I've read Krishna book once. I've understood it completely. So that's not the proper understanding. So we see that the acharyas and great devotees, they bring out different elements, different light, different angles of vision to understand who Krishna is and his relationship with his devotees. And it just keeps increasing more and more and more. Krishnadas Kaviraj explains multiple times in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that he's just giving a little hint because he's worried. What is he worried about? What is one anxiety of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami? He's worried that because he doesn't want to unnecessarily increase the volume of this book more and more and more and more. It looks small to us because, we have 17 volumes, but you just take the Bengali. But there's so much that can be said about Krishna and his pastimes and his devotees. It's endless, and it keeps on increasing. How is it increasing? Krishna appeared so long ago. He's left this world. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has also left this world. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu hasn't left this world. Krishna hasn't left this world. Krishna remained in this world as it's being explained in the Bhagavatam. He left this world according to mundane vision. His pastimes are still going on, but then he remained as the Srimad Bhagavatam. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is still here. Srila Prabhupada has explained that, where those sincere devotees are engaging in the Sankirtan movement, that is Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. So when we look at the world and we see the Krishna conscious movement, and we see those great devotees that are surrendering their lives, they're pure devotees because their whole intent is pure. They're following the process of Krishna consciousness perfectly. We see the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead continuing on in this Sankirtan movement of mundane wranglers. This mundaners, Prabhupada is speaking of so much in this purport. We see them taking to the process of Krishna consciousness, of them, their hardcore speculation, this and that, becoming soft-hearted devotees,
We experience ourselves of going out on Sankirtan, of preaching Lord Chaitanya's mission. What also too, we read in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. I was just listening the other day. Lord Chaitanya went to the house of, so many times he went, but he went to the house of Advaita Acharya. And so Krishnadas Kaviraj is mentioning Lord Chaitanya is going to go on tour of South India. So he's saying so much food and things were offered there, but we'll describe that later. So this pastime of feasting, of taking prasadam, just like soon is coming up is the appearance day of Lord Ramachandra. So there will be a feast, and different preparations will be cooked, and so many different feasts there, and the preparations are being offered, and it's amazing. It's full. It's blissful. It is Krishna consciousness. This is Krishna consciousness. This chanting of Hare Krishna, this distributing books, this honoring of opulent prasadam. And Lord Chaitanya's mood was that, especially during feast, that you eat up to the neck. So you eat so much that, anyways, I won't get too graphic, but a little bit of prasadam should come out of the corner of your mouth. And then some eager Vaishnav can take that remnants and honor that. That's Lord Chaitanya's mood, is taking the remnants of the Vaishnav. There was that story given of one devotee, I forget who, but he had such great intelligence, and he utilized that intelligence for getting devotees to come to his house, and then he would honor the remnants. So then devotees, he would feed them on banana leaves, and then, take that, and then he would take that away and throw it in the dirt pile or something. But then he would come later, and he would unravel that and lick it, the remnants of the devotees. Anyways, it's difficult, it may be difficult to understand, but whatever. This is the pastimes. If you're in it, you're in it. If not, whatever. I'm not going to analyze all that right now. So then he would also, too, feed the devotee mangoes, and then mangoes leaves a nice big pit. And so he would go and he would suck the remnants off of that. So it's described, so the philosophical understanding of that is that by honoring the remnants of the devotees, that is very powerful for advancing in Krishna consciousness. And then it's also very nectar too. So then, because we want to be infected with the consciousness and desire of the pure devotees, just like the materialists. They push so many books, and then you read them, and you simply become attached to illicit sex, gambling, meat eating, and intoxication. So we want to be infected with the Krishna virus, just like this coronavirus was going around. Maybe it's still going around. I don't really know. Anyways, whatever. So we want to be infected with Krishna consciousness. And so what is that infection of Krishna consciousness? I don't know the Sanskrit, but the song, what is it? Gauranga Bulite Hobe. So Narottam Das Thakur is praying that when this day will come, that when I hear the name of Lord Gauranga, that simply my body shakes and tears come from my eyes. So this is the infection of Krishna consciousness. It becomes so much that you become overwhelmed with Krishna consciousness. So this is the point. So anyways, the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his associates, and just like is being explained here, that he's always a problem for the non-devotees. So many, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's all blissful. Lord Chaitanya is amazing. He performed these amazing pastimes. So did his devotees. And then there's always some envious class that's a big problem. The same thing goes on. We go out and distribute books, and you can't distribute books here. You can't do this. You can't do that. But then one devotee was saying, but there's so many people that are getting drunk and doing drugs, but then you can't distribute books here because it's against the law. I was reading the other day, yesterday actually, I was telling Mitravan Prabhu, and one of formerly Harikesh Maharaj, his Varnashram manifesto. So in there he was describing about how the Kshatriya, about how one has to rule the state according to the will of the Supreme Personality of God and according to the rules of Dharma. And nowadays you have a state that's so-called, it's secular, it's all inclusive, that you believe in God, you don't believe in God, it's all okay. But he was bringing out the point that actually in the name of being secular, that it's atheistic, because simply it's just pushing forward atheistic dogma of enjoy your senses, of engage in whatever, of sinful life, and it's further, and it's not putting God's laws and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, in the center. So therefore, it's promoting atheism. And so they have a problem. So that therefore, because this so-called secular society, then there's a problem if we go out and we try to share Krishna consciousness, or we go out and we try to speak. Well, you can't chant Hare Krishna here, or whatever the situation may be, or you can't do this, you can't distribute books here, blah blah blah. So many excuses, so many nonsense. So Krishna consciousness, Krishna. We have to decide. So it's saying here in this verse that Krishna is always a problem for the non-devotees. so in Krishna consciousness, sometimes we may want to be, what's the word? We say, the devotees, I've heard them say that, oh, it's very polarizing. You know, if you dress as a devotee or you wear a tilak or whatever, or you speak of Krishna, it's very polarizing because if you dress as a devotee, then it's like, it's black and white, you know. But then, yeah, Krishna is pretty polarizing, actually. And non-devotees don't like him. So we have to decide, do we want to be polarized with Krishna? Because Krishna he's like that. Lord Chaitanya is like that, chanting Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada was like that also. Anyway, so he's a problem for the non-devotees. He was a problem for Kamsa, for Jarasandha, for Shishupal. He couldn't stand Krishna. He was always criticizing. And I mean, Krishna can analyze. I mean, everybody knew. Well, different. It was political. It was a controversy because Rukmini wanted to be married to Krishna, but he didn't like Krishna, and he wanted to marry him to Shishupal. And then Dhamaghosh, Rukmini's father, what was he going to do? It was a big problem, and Shishupal was a king, and this and that, and so it was a controversy. What to do? And so Rukmini wanted to marry Krishna or Rukmini to Shishupal. And anyway, so Krishna came and he stole Rukmini forcibly. And Rukmini was already attracted to Krishna anyways. And so she sent that Brahmin there to inform Krishna of her desire. And also too, she explained, you come and steal me at this time. So what is this? So that wasn't anyways, we don't read those books, but that wasn't a win-win situation for anybody. It wasn't, Shishupal lost completely. So Krishna wasn't being so mindful of Shishupal's feelings. It was a problem. So he caused some animosity there. So Krishna's a problem. Anyway, that's the Leela. And it's exciting and it's amazing. And so these things are meant to attract us. So Krishna is the supreme enjoyer of the material and spiritual worlds. And he enjoys in his own abode in the spiritual sky. So it's Krishna's, it's like the name of our organization is Krishna Life. So it's Krishna's life. He does what he wants. He enjoys how he wants. And he has amazing pastimes which are meant to attract us. And he has these devotees there. He becomes the friend of Arjuna. He becomes the neighbor of the residents of Vrindavan. And mentioned here, the son of Nanda and Yashoda, the friend of Sudama, Sri Dama. All these different things. And the lover of the dancers of Vrajabhumi. So this is the personal feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And as we can see, it's relishable to just talk about those things. We were talking about impersonal Brahman in the beginning of the class. And it wasn't so interesting. So there's some, it's connected to Krishna. But the thing, it's much more, we have the Krishna book, these 90 chapters, 2 volumes, all describing the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There's no book describing the glories of maybe there's a book, I guess the Upanishads, but there's the best-selling book in the world right now isn't, the glories of the Brahmajyoti. Because then, what's to say? It's unlimited, it's eternal, it's light. It's about all you can say. And then you can say, well, there's no mundane news. There's no coronavirus there. There's no what else? There's no bills. There's nothing. There's nothing there. So there's nothing to say about that. So, but we see with Krishna book that there's so many chapters of Krishna's pastimes. And then we see too that there's adventure, there's action, there's mystery, there's love, there's romance. There's heartbreak because Krishna's in Kaliya has Krishna in his coils, and then everybody's thinking, how's Krishna going to get out of that? And so it's devastating, and everybody's crying, and everybody's freaking out. And so that's the pastime, that's the Leela, that's the play, that's the drama. But the thing is that this is reality. So these things are being explained. They're meant to attract us. And so I brought the book, but I probably won't really read from it. So there's a couple books here. So this book, Briyat Bhagavatam Rita, the camera there. So this book, I believe it costs $60. So it costs $60, yeah. So you pay $60 for the book. Anyway, so this book, without getting into that point. So this book is 2 parts. It's 3 volumes. And in summary, it describes the devotee. So the question is asked, who's the devotee who's getting the most mercy? And I'm not going to get all into all that right now. And so that's described, and it goes through all the different pure devotees, more and more coming to the point of who's getting the most mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So there's mention of Shiva, and then so there's some talk of the residents of the Vishnu Dutas, and then Hanuman, and like this going up, and then the Pandavas, and then going to Dwarka. So that discussion is given there. And also too, in the second part, it's described the glories of Goloka. So we're touching on a little bit here on the spiritual sky. Some glories are mentioned, that there's no light there, like how it is in the material world. And there's amazing residents there. And praying for the Lord's to move this impersonal feature, to understand that, to move the Brahman effulgence, to make way into the personal feature of Krishna. So the second part of the book describes, going through the material world, and I'm summarizing very in short, but going through all the different locales. This Gopakumar, he travels around and he attains like the topmost position in different spheres of the material world. And so like this, so he becomes a king in this world, and then becomes Indra, then goes to, I believe, Janaloka, and they're meditating there. And then all these places, those who are worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the perfection of that. And then goes to Brahmaloka, and then goes to the coverings of the material world. And like this, just moving further and further up, just going through the material world to Vaikuntha. So that book very clearly illustrates that point. And so the point is, where I'm getting to, is that he makes a point actually in the he makes a point actually, and I was going to read the text, but I won't read it. But he kind of makes a point that it seems like when Mathura Dham and this Vrindavan, that it's just like the material world. It looks similar, but it's not, because one understanding is that he went through all the different rungs of the material world and to the spiritual world. And so all these descriptions are given there. But the conclusion of it is that Goloka Vrindavan is the topmost planet in the universe, in the creation. And it is in that place where the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is enjoying in the highest degree. So this verse is hinting at that. And he enjoys in his own abode in the spiritual sky. And also the purport is leading way to that. So this progression of realization, going further and further, of going to the highest and topmost planet, Goloka Vrindavan. So these things are meant to attract us, and we should have this understanding, this proper understanding of who Krishna is and what his planet, his topmost planet is, and the nature of that planet, actually, because some description is given here, and we can just imagine. Because we don't have any experience in this world of a place that doesn't require light. There's no self-luminous object in this world. Maybe a firefly, but it is some useless light, a firefly. It only looks nice at night. So we have no experience of that. So the spiritual world is completely beyond our conception, and it is ecstatic. I mean, this book describes it. I mean, I'm just talking in brief. Can read Brihad Bhagavatamrita after you have read all of Srila Prabhupada's books multiple times. Because we have to, not that Srila Prabhupada's books, everything is there to become Krishna consciousness. But then like Srila Prabhupada recommends that devotees should read this book also, because it goes deeper and deeper into the process of Krishna consciousness. But then you read this and then you understand and see how all these points are in Srila Prabhupada's books also, and he's highlighting these different points and bringing these explanations out. So we want to become attracted to Krishna, to Krishna's devotees, and to the process of Krishna consciousness, and we want something to look forward to. We want to have some goal. We want to have some mission. We want to have feelings and all these things. So we have to place those things. We have to have this mission, this goal, and this focus to serve Srila Prabhupada in his mission, and something to look forward to in the spiritual world, whatever that may be. We may be attracted to different features of Krishna, because Krishna's all attractive. We may think that it's very amazing how Krishna's, heroic in certain circumstances, or it was really far out, that how Krishna killed the Keshi demon, or how Krishna dealt with Bakasura. It's pretty cool, right? He split them in two. So so they take some strength to do that, actually, to split something in two. Just anyways, that's a whole other talk. So Krishna is all attractive. And so we should be attracted to Krishna. We should be attracted to the devotees also, because they're attractive, because they're servants of Krishna. And they have wonderful, amazing qualities. And the spiritual world is full of wonderful associates. So we can only imagine what it's like there. And so much can be said about the spiritual world, about Krishna, about his abode, about the non-devotees and everything, and all these things. They're endless topics. And so anyways, more could be said about that. And I'll stop there if there's any questions or comments about anything. Hare Krishna. Oh, Ty's got something.
I remember Vishnu Cheddar Prabhu said that the impersonalists eventually have to fall down from the Brahma Jyoti if they do go up there, because they still have the desire to enjoy. You need like a form to enjoy. Yeah. So you need like senses and a body to enjoy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that was it.
Yeah, the Bhagavatam explains that, Ravandaksha. So that the impersonalists, they rise to the topmost position, but they fall down. But it's just due to desire, that ultimately this Brahman effulgence is not completely satisfying. That because there's no engagement, there's no interaction. So it's not, there's more to, that's not, the living beings were created to enjoy with Krishna, not to remain in an isolated Brahman state. So, yes.
So the Brahmavadis, is it that they recognize Krishna's personal form as an aspect of him, but perceive the impersonal as like superior, or do they just altogether have no conception of Krishna's personal form?
My understanding is that they have some conception, but they're not attracted to it like so much. Like they may have like heard some things about Krishna or whatever, but they're more kind of interested in this Brahman and like that. And so they're attracted to that. Because the four Kumaras are described as being like that. We'll get to that, I believe, in the third canto. That they kind of heard some stuff about Krishna, but they weren't so interested. But then when they came in contact with, Vishnu again, and they smelled the tulasi leaves from his feet, then their minds changed and they became attracted to devotional service. So it's a progression, ultimately. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Mahatma Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, you can talk.
Okay. Kalki Prabu, can you hear me?
Hare Krishna. Yes.
Hare Krishna. So, I was thinking, how Krishna is so polarizing. That even those devotees who slack off in the Krishna consciousness and who've gone on with the whole slack off program in the Krishna consciousness movement for some time, when they actually see devotees who are actually fired up and want to do the real thing, like distributing Prabhupada's books and, kicking feminism and atheism and bogusness and Sahajavad and all that in the face with spiked boots, they get fried out. Because, they, in the name of Krishna consciousness, they take shelter of Maya. And, when they see someone who is coming and shaking their illusion, they get fried out. As a matter of fact, they get more fried out than the karmis. For example, we were distributing books at the Trump rally, and then someone took a picture of us or whatever, it was online or something. And then a Prabhupada disciple, I don't want to say the name of that person, commented on that post saying, if anyone deserves to get COVID and die, it's these brahmacharis. So it's so sad that we're out there giving people Krishna consciousness, but because it messes with their so-called spiritual, their so-called mundane conception of Krishna consciousness, they don't even mind us dying. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah. That's what Srila Prabhupada would often explain. What did he say? That preaching Krishna consciousness is a thankless task. Because even amongst, That Krishna's all attractive, Krishna's amazing, but then to go out and speak Krishna consciousness means to upset people or to agitate people. And then even Srila Prabhupada was criticized by some of his godbrothers and things. But the thing is that the need is so great and the service is so intense, and it's what's required right now at this specific moment. So in order to accomplish that and fulfill Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement, sometimes like we see that, I forgot who it was, but there was one devotee who stepped over Lord Chaitanya. He made, it's a minor offense in order to serve the Lord. So sometimes some offense may need to be made or shake up people, but what to do? It's a thankless task, and books have to be distributed, and people have to be agitated, and other devotees may get agitated, but, what to do? Srila Prabhupada didn't sit in Vrindavan and just hide away and, just out of fear of displeasing his godbrothers. So the show must go on. I was going to give the Mataji.
It's a question by Bhaktanali.
Okay, I'm going to give the Mataji a
Okay.
chance. Yeah. Okay. There's something.
Hare Krishna.
All right, that's the last question.
Seen by Krishna.
Say it again, Prabhu, please.
Saying if the Bhagavatam is Krishna, I guess the proper mood is that we should be seen, not see. So does that mean we read the Bhagavatam, or does the Bhagavatam read us?
Wow. The Bhagavatam is reading us. The Bhagavatam is reading us. That's the proper mood, actually. That's Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was trying to hammer this point over and over again. Because the thing is that when we can read the Bhagavatam, and we've seen actually, I've seen so many times, somebody reads the whole Bhagavatam, right? And then they leave Krishna consciousness. So did they actually read the Srimad Bhagavatam? The retina of their eyes may have hit the ink on the page and the light reflected, and some, contemplation on the material brain levels may have gone on, but then they leave. So the thing is that when we're reading Srimad Bhagavatam, it's a service. We're not reading to acquire knowledge or whatever, but we're reading to that we're placing ourselves, and we're worshiping Krishna by our intelligence. It's like we come in the morning before Mangalarti. Why are we coming to Mangalarti? Which to sit here and stand and look at the pictures of Krishna. We're coming to Mangalarti. Of course, that's there to look at Krishna and take darshan. But the higher understanding is that we're going before the Lord and we're reading the Bhagavatam. We're going to Mangalarti to be seen by Krishna. We want to be the object of Krishna's vision. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to say always that don't act in such a way to see God, but act in such a way that God wants to see you. So we're reading Srimad Bhagavatam. We want Krishna to reveal himself. So then Bhagavatam is reading us in that sense. And that's the proper mood, that we're reading as a service, not as an academic study. And so if we do that, then we'll see that we get amazing realizations, then we have something to say. And then otherwise we read the Bhagavatam, we fall asleep. Why is that? Because we don't think the Bhagavatam is non-different from Krishna, or we're too tired. Which is generally the case. Generally, we're too tired to read or something. But yeah, the Krishna is not different from the Bhagavatam. And if we read in that mood, then it'll be revealed. And then we'll actually treat like that. Then we won't think the Bhagavatam is some book or whatever. Then we think this is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then when we actually feel like that, then we'll know. Then we'll be so eager to distribute these books, because we'll know that people are actually getting Krishna. They're getting the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We'll have complete, absolute faith in that. And then we have complete, absolute faith in that. Then we'll believe, then we'll understand more what Srila Prabhupada's talking about. And then we'll be like completely fired up to carry out Srila Prabhupada's instructions. Alrighty. Okay, small question.
Lord Krishna is in the form of Paramatma within all hearts and all living entities. But I'm always wondering why in the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, verse 4, Lord says that he is in all living entities, all in him, but he is not.
Yeah, he's on all living entities.
I am not.
Yeah, so that's kind of like a technical thing. So my understanding of that, so Krishna, yeah, it is a big question. The short answer, I mean, there's other places in Shastra, but the short answer that, I mean, is both. That Krishna is there and he's not there. He's there in his impersonal aspect, but he's not there in his personal aspect. That's one. Yeah, he's not there because Krishna's not in everybody's heart. Krishna's in Goloka Vrindavan enjoying his pastimes. But then simultaneously he's here as like Paramama and different things. So it's like simultaneous. It's like that. So that's a simple. Anyway, sorry. Hare Krishna. All right. Shri